Hello, welcome to TrueHoop with me, Jarod, Hector, and it's the return of Coach David Thorpe. How are you, sir?
I'm back, baby. I'm back. I'm doing
Coach
fine,
Thorpe
Jarod.
is back. Glad you're back. Glad you're doing well. So, for those of you that don't know, David's son Max graduated from Florida State last week or the week before. And he and his wife Chrissy were out in Tallahassee and celebrating and doing all the things that you do. And then David, because this is busy time of the year for David, he has to train NBA players and other professionals. He went to LA, and David, Max joined you for these training sessions with some pro players. And I know by the smile on your face that warmed your heart and gave you all the feels. Tell us about training pro players with Max.
Yeah, it was the all NBA guys. And I helped out one very talented college player as well that's from Florida, actually, that has a chance to make the NBA. It's funny. This parenting journey is, and I won't go into much, but, you think you know your kid because, I mean, I watched him. I used to talk to him when he was inside his mom. I watched him come out of his mom. I was holding her left ankle, as I've told you before. Um, and I was his first coach and everything else. And it's just so amazing to see. I mean, the one thing about my son is when you're my son, NBA players aren't something different for you. Like
Right.
he was rebounding for Cats when he was 10 years old, He was getting messages from them and whatever. And then when he was good enough starting at 16, he was working out with them. And by 17, 18, he was winning shooting contests sometimes because he can really shoot. And but he wasn't much of a talker around them, as he shouldn't be. We were running a workout and he was listening. But I definitely have seen a total transformation. And it's so wonderful to see. The Florida State, no college program is close to being perfect, but they have helped him develop as a man for sure. And to hear him have a voice, mostly he listened. I do a solo act normally when I'm coaching, unless I have an assistant that's been around. None of these guys had met Max before. But he got to know them on a personal level. And some of my favorite memories of the week are when I would bring him to almost every meal I had with the players, which was one or two a day every day typically. And invariably, I'm going to get a phone call and excuse myself to go take the phone call. But as I'm outside, and remember, this isn't Florida; it's California.
Right.
You could be outside and not sweat. So I could be outside having conversations with people and not get uncomfortable. But I would look back inside and just see him animatedly talking to these NBA players. That's not something that would happen before. And he's got a future in basketball. What he does, we'll see. He's got to still finish playing. He's still playing at Florida State, getting his master's. But yeah, it was great to see. And he's of the age that most of my players are, give or take 3-4 years at most.
Right.
A couple of them are a couple years younger, a couple of them are a couple years older. And then also, he went with me to some of the Rico runs at UCLA, which was really a lovely place to play basketball at UCLA.
Who wouldn't like to play pickup at UCLA?
Right. We didn't go to the Poly Pavilion, but we walked campus every day. You have to park off campus and walk on. And so he was able to see a lot of these guys up close and personal. I was to say this. I have a favorite memory of the whole thing, and that was Scotty Barnes walks in. And I met him once in Vegas this summer. He probably
Max's former teammate.
Right. And I'm going to talk about Scotty in a minute here. I didn't warn you about this, but I'm going to. But before I get into the more concerning part, he saw Max and you could just see and register in his face, like, what in the world is Max Thorpe doing in UCLA gym for pickup games? And so Scotty, who's, my son's 6'3" in shoes, Scotty's 6'7" or so in shoes. So he bends over to hug Max and he rests his head on Max's shoulder and smiles. I'm looking at his face. Max's back's to me, and squeezes Max. And it was a reminder of who Scotty used to be. And so this very loving, charismatic person, Jarod, there was a period of time in Scotty Barnes' life, from what I'm told, and then what I've witnessed a little bit as a pro, where he was the loudest guy in every gym, whether he played or not. And that is not the guy that I saw for 3 days in a row in Toronto. I went Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday to games. Not a word. He at some points he was unbelievable, and many times he was taking plays off because it's pickup basketball. Who cares? But when he wanted to dominate, holy cow, did he dominate, as did some of the other veteran players. But no talking, there's a passion and a zeal that he used to live his life with that I don't see. Now it's pickup games in August, but I've noticed this during the season last year. And now let's see going forward with a new coach who was there, but he wasn't coaching anyone.
Right.
That the Scotty Barnes that hugged my son with his whole body, that's the Scotty Barnes that I fell in love with as a player when I thought he was the second best player in the draft. And we need to see that guy this year. We'll see what happens, but that's on Toronto and on Scotty to find that love and passion again. And I'll finish with this, Jarod. I was told by an NBA player's mom, who I saw in California, to watch the show Quarterback on Netflix. Well, I don't know who any of these people are. I've heard of their names.
Right.
I wouldn't recognize them in a lineup. I wouldn't recognize them in my house except for Mahomes. Although I would tell you, I don't know. He didn't look quite as I pictured him. I've watched him play, though. He's a magical player. But I was told to watch it. Yeah, unbelievable player. Magical. Really a magical talent. And a magical personality. And so if I don't know, I'm not friends with Scotty. I don't help Scotty. But if I was, I would tell him, as I did some of my point guards in the NBA, watch that show. You can ignore the religious freak Kirk Cousins, who seems like an unbelievably tough guy, super tough guy. Marcus Mariota doesn't look like a very talented player to me. I don't know anything about these games, so it's great watching because I have no idea what's going to happen in the games because I don't know anything. Right. But Mahomes is mesmerizing. His energy. He has the best shit talking game of any football player I've ever seen. He has one great play. This is maybe in episode 1 where he makes this unbelievable play. Like he doesn't know how he did it, but he knows he did something remarkable. And as he's going to, jump on his teammate who scored, he says to the other team's defense, like, I'm like that. I'm like that. Fucking love that. Like, because they've never seen anything like this before either. Yeah. So that is who Scotty used to be. Just this overwhelmingly charismatic personality that brought his team up. And we need to see that again. I think we need to see it more from him.
Well, I didn't know you were going there, but this is what makes for great podcasts. David, as someone, I know you don't help Scotty, but if you were to, I imagine the NBA can beat that out of you sometimes, right? That charisma and that joy and zeal for the game, the rigors of the game, the harshness and realities of being a professional can beat some of that out of you. So how would you, if you were, besides telling him to watch Quarterback, would you help Scotty find some of that joy again?
Well, you literally just quoted me perfectly, Jarod, because that's what I said to friends sitting by me. The NBA's beat that part of him out. And too bad. It's everything you said. It's the rigors of the game, the grind of the game, the slog of the game. Yeah, but it's also the tumult in Toronto has been a mess for a couple of years. I had one agent say to me, not his agent, Rookie of the Year might have been bad for him. I don't agree. But I understand what this guy was saying. This very good agent was saying that it came with so much more expectations and responsibilities. And Toronto was kind of a trash fire last year. Even though they finished the season better than people realize with a starting 5 anyway, their coach got fired. The guy won a championship in 2019. He's gone. Yep. That tells you how bad the season was. Masai was nowhere to be seen in LA for whatever reason. It's a mess. We'll see how things go this year. They have a lot of talent still. But I would say to him, be yourself. If this is who you are now, okay, I honor that. But I suspect that you are acting the way you think you're supposed to act. And remember, I know you know this story, Jarod. We probably have talked about it once before in the 300 podcasts we've done now, whatever it is. I watched in 1979 the live Kareem Skyhook to win the game. I think that's the San Diego Clippers on a tape delay Friday night. And Magic Johnson jumped all over him as a rookie. Right. And Kareem said, hey, Buck, we got 81 more. We can't do that. And Magic said, hey, big fella, you keep making game-winning hook shots from 15 feet. I'm doing 81. Right, exactly. So Magic didn't tone it down. Right. He had, he may have changed. We all grow up a little bit. We're not puppy dogs forever. But that love of the game and love of humanity was so evident in the way Magic played. And I think it's a big part of his success. Yeah, I really do. Magic has this, you feel Magic when you were his teammate. You could see it on the court. He made you play better just by the way he played and his personality. I think Scotty has similar gifts. And so I would tell him it's okay to be that person. It's okay. Patrick Mahomes would not be Patrick Mahomes. He'd be more like Kirk Cousins if he kept it to himself more. Doesn't mean he wouldn't be great, but he wouldn't be as great, in my opinion. So I would just tell him it's okay to be that kind of personality.
Yeah, for sure. No, well, I'm glad you got to head into LA and spend time with Max doing what you love and doing it with your son. Max, whenever you listen to this podcast, make sure you get a job running an NBA team. Of course, hire your dad, then hire me, so we can really, make these NBA teams do what they're supposed to be doing.
That would be a very sweet thing, but I am worried that at 58 years of age, I'm not going to be alive.
You're like, you don't know where you're going to be at that point.
Yeah, I'm rooting for him every step of the way. I'm doing my best to be there, but I can't guarantee that.
Oh man, well, we're hoping Coach Thorpe will still be here, and you'll still know a lot about basketball at that stage, so you'll definitely be valuable. Yeah. All right, guys, as you know, we do a segment called Ask Coach Thorpe. You can get into Coach Thorpe's big basketball brain and get the advantages that we all get getting to talk to him and ask him basketball questions. If you want to do that, send a question to TrueHoop at TrueHoop.com. That is TrueHoop at TrueHoop.com, and we will read your questions on air and have Coach Thorpe answer them. So to welcome him back, we've got a few questions from some of our listeners. So this is from a listener named David. What are the top 3 things that teams like the Miami Heat do to develop talent that everyone misses out on? Culture is a big part of it, but what specifically are they doing? And what are the lessons for the rest of us who run school districts or startups? So I kind of know where this person's going, right? Miami seems to have some kind of secret sauce. Well, what is that secret sauce they have when it comes to identifying and developing talent? And how can someone in their workplace do the same?
Well, you can't necessarily, unless you're running an NBA team, you can't just do what they do. You're not doing conditioning tests if you're running a school district, right? You can't. I'm pretty sure you're not allowed to. I have a player that plays for the Heat, and their conditioning test is real. It's no joke. The way you can't go through till you do that. It's hard. They're crazy. They have a fetish about being in great shape. They always have since Pat Riley was there. Mm-hmm. So that is important, Jarod, because absent being in great shape, that you're limited. Your ceiling is lowered for what you can do on the court for different reasons, obviously. So I think their secret sauce is named Eric Spoelstra. Mm-hmm. I think that he and let's credit his staff, including management and Pat Riley. They do a great job of really helping you know what your role is, and then let you live and breathe in that role. Really expand it. Don't be afraid to try it. Duncan Robinson and Max Strus are 2 examples of guys that might be more reticent to shoot more threes somewhere else and aren't at all shy. Like, they've got some good players on their team. There are plenty of players in the NBA that pass up open threes early in the offense because big fella wants a touch or the point guard wants the ball. But they take them. They let it go. That's good management. That's good coaching. This is what we expect you to do. I know that before Spoelstra flew east for the World Cup, mm-hmm. he was on the phone with at least one player of his that was not with the team before, walking him through like what we think you can do and how excited I am. Like that, this doesn't always happen where head coaches do that. So if you're running a school district, know your personnel. Not so easy if you're managing hundreds or thousands of people, but you can try whatever you can do to get them to feel you. I think Miami's done a great job. Spo's done a great job. You and I have talked before about Pat Riley empowering Spoelstra when he had Dwayne and LeBron and Bosh by telling LeBron and Bosh, don't come to my office and tell me to fire my coach. Not happening. Right? That's Spoelstra has to be encouraged by that way back when people thought they were going to fire him all the time. Right? Mm-hmm. So I think they have, when you talk about culture, that's not talent recognition. That is talent development. And so I don't think they're so great at recognizing talent. I really don't. I could be wrong. We'll see. But I think they've done a great job of creating conditions where all these great players have a better chance to get to, Gabe Vincent, Strus, mm-hmm. Duncan, to name just 3. Even Bam. And Bam hasn't added a 3-point shot to his game. Mm-hmm. He's the best player he can be absent that. I think he should add that. He hasn't yet. But he certainly has shined in the role they've created for him. And Spo is pretty innovative. You know, the fact that he'll play more zone than any other team, it means something, right? You're not gonna miss playing time because you struggle to guard, because you're good on offense. We want to play you. We're going to change our defense so that we can accommodate your inability and your abilities. So that's something to be admired and probably emulated by NBA teams.
No, without question. And again, it's so much of it is about knowing your personnel, giving them roles, but also allowing them the freedom to excel in their role, but also make mistakes and learn within that role, right? I mean, that's so important in how people can develop. And that's something you can take, again, as David said, whether you're coaching an NBA team, you're running a school district, you're running a startup, whatever it may be, right? Like, and that's a part of management and coaching, right? And that's part of David's definition of leadership, right? Breathing spirit into others, right? And so the Spoelstra and the Heat do a very good job of that. We have a question from Marco in Australia. As he's to be inducted into the Hall of Fame, which he was this past weekend, what are your greatest memories of Dwayne Wade? Perhaps a story untold. In your book of Basketball is Jazz, you documented a bit about your time watching the 2006 finals and the dominance on display, as well as a car ride with a young Wade.
So I have a few. One of them is his rookie season. That was 2003. My kids were 2 years old. And so I would kind of be on daddy duty at night so mom could get a rest. And I would watch all of Dwayne's games because of Udonis. And I would get up. I had a Scan Design recliner that I used to sit in. I used to get up, God, once a game, like, oh my God, he was just so fast. And I'm in Florida. You know, speed is not a surprising thing. Right. I'm not in Iowa. I'm in Florida. And but and normally those plays would be like, and you know my mind a little bit. I can see things pretty quickly. There'd be a ball going out of bounds, and I just knew he couldn't get to it. He'd get to it. There'd be a loose ball, and he was much farther away from the other guy. He'd get to it. Like, oh my God, is this guy fast and relentless? Totally relentless. One of my favorite stories was when he scored, I want to say it was 36 in overtime against the Mavericks in Game 5 of the NBA Finals when it was 2-2. When the Mavericks started picking him up full court, double teaming him early, like whatever they could do, they couldn't solve him. He did go to the free throw line a lot, much to Mark Cuban's chagrin, but I thought he earned this bounce. You know, I was sitting in the stands, who knows? But I called one of my NBA guys back then, Kevin Martin, who was kind of surging as a player, and told him, I've told this story before probably, did you see how hard Dwayne Wade had to work to get those points? Like, that's every night. And so I told Kevin, as you start scoring more and more, and every team starts focusing on you, and they had no one else in Sacramento, you've got to be tough enough to bring it every night. That's how Dwayne is. He's just relentless with it. The limousine story was simply, you know, he had no ride home from the All-Star game, the rookie All-Star game his rookie year. Yeah, and he's just such a sweet. And I just know how to talk to players, and we had mutual friends, right? So I just was talking about our mutual friends from his college days at Marquette. And he was just such a sweet, humble guy. And when we're out of it, my wife's like, who was that kid? And I said, we just watched him play, right? But that same guy, Jarod, is the reason why LeBron went to Miami, because he played for Team USA the summer before they joined together. And he came off the bench, and he was one of the best 2 or 3 players on the planet. And I told, this is when I told Henry Abbott in January of that year, I think LeBron's going to go to Miami and play with Wade, which sounds stupid, but I told him I think it's going to happen because I just watched LeBron's Cleveland team play, and he's got no one like that on his team.
Not even close.
And Dwayne Wade is the one guy that he can team up with that will recognize, okay, LeBron's better than me, but I can still do my thing, and he'll handle it well. I did not predict Chris Bosh. No clue that was happening. But that's my memory always of Wade is so unselfish and so humble at the same time being one of this guy, he has him number 2 in the league, but number 3 all time as shooting guard.
Right. So he said so Marcos thinks that Wade's peak as a 2 guard is second only to MJ's peak as a 2 guard.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you got a good argument to make there. And then he's like, has him 3rd overall behind Kobe.
Kobe's long career, right. I would agree with him. He was the best shooting guard after Jordan I ever saw, including Kobe. He was the best I ever saw.
What about, and we'll get to this player in a bit, Harden's peak as a 2 guard?
He's not a 2 guard. but it's a great question.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, he's not really a two guard. He's a point guard.
No, he's a primary ball handler, more so than Dwayne. He led the league in assists.
Also true. Also
You're
true.
right.
Also
so
true.
But still, your question is great. I'm a fan of James Harden. I know we'll get to the more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the numbers are the numbers. Like the guy's putting up. You know better than me if what his EPM was like in those years, but whatever they look back, off the charts. Yeah. He just did it differently. Brilliant genius of a player. But yeah, he was really their point guard. But so who? I mean, Steph Curry, is a point guard, even though he's played with point guards.
That's it. It's those three. It's Jordan, Wade, and Kobe. That's it. And most people will say Jordan, Kobe, Wade in terms of their overall. But that Wade peak, I think, was at Wade peak.
My goodness. If you claim to be an NBA fan and you type in Dwayne Wade highlights on YouTube and you're not thoroughly mesmerized, you're not an NBA fan. You might root for your team, but because his performances are just incredible, really incredible.
I remember that Nike commercial. Was it Nike? Well, one of those commercials was like he kept falling down, but like, oh, don't worry, he'll get back up. And it's like, and everybody be like, see, he gets back up. The commercial says it.
Yes, and and Henry Abbott used to tell me,
right, he won't get up for long. Yeah,
not good for your body to keep falling like that. Yeah,
definitely not. No, and you saw that later in his career, right? It took a toll, right? That's just that's the nature of the game.
Same as Larry Bird.
Yeah. Speaking of guards. This is from listener Steve. Assuming that the Sixers trade Harden without returning a point guard in the deal, how likely is it that Nick Nurse tries to move Embiid into more of a point center role with like the way they do with Jokic in Denver as the model, instead of relying on Maxey to transform into a true point guard? Now, well, answer that question because in a hypothetical world, because James Harden right now isn't getting traded. But if a point guard didn't come back in a hypothetical trade, could you see Embiid in that point center role a la Jokic?
For sure. Yeah. He's not anywhere near the passer Jokic.
Not close.
So it's not close. It's not the best use for him. But I reject the premise because I don't believe in the true point guard role as being mandatory to win a game.
Mm-hmm.
Steph Curry, we talked about him. Mm-hmm. I mean, Harden didn't win a championship, but he certainly won a ton of games. The list is endless. Derrick Rose was a hell of a player. And would you call him a true point guard? No. Who wants those guys? The true point guards were pass first, pass second, pass third options. Yeah. Why wouldn't you want weaponize all five guys? Maxey can handle whatever you want. He's going to be amazing. Jokic will have to do more playmaking. He just isn't gifted the way Jokic is. He's gifted in his own way, which is amazing. Mm-hmm. But I don't know that Nick Nurse will want to do any of that. Right. It's really a big mystery. There's Philadelphia's been punched in the eye twice now. You had the Ben Simmons issue. Now you have the James Harden issue. I don't know what's going to happen. Embiid might just be sick of it and want out. I saw Daryl. I talked to him some in LA. He was the only executive there, at least high level executive. I didn't see any of the GMs. Only a couple of teams were there anyway. But no, he's got his hands full for sure because no one wants to be called a liar by an iconic superstar like Harden. And Nick Nurse. Yeah, Nick Nurse, he likes to run a very democratic offense, which is why I thought it was kind of surprising that he's hired. He could always change, but they really move the ball side to side a ton and then look for the best matchup and attacked. That's not the way Philly plays.
Yeah, it's the question about true point guard, and it's interesting, right? Because you would probably say the last mold of a quote unquote true point guard is Chris Paul, right? We call him the point guard, but Paul was far more weaponized than any of those true point guards prior to, right? Certainly way more than Stockton and those kinds of players. And to your point, you don't necessarily think you need a quote unquote true point guard, right? If your primary ball handler is a good decision maker, that's really all that matters, right? Like it doesn't matter because sometimes him scoring is the best option, right? Like based on however the game, however the game is being presented to him in that manner. So that's why you have these scoring guards like a Derrick Rose before. Right. And even on that Miami Heat team that won was Wade was the main guy, it was Wade and Shaq. Right. I know that you had like a nominal point guard, but Wade was the primary ball handler in a lot of those scenarios. For sure.
Mario Chalmers was no real quarterback.
Right.
I know you watch Team USA. We'll talk about that later. Mm-hmm. Jalen Brunson scores.
Yes, he does.
That's what he does. He scores. Halliburton can score.
Mm-hmm.
He's taking a different role for Team USA than he will with Indiana, I promise you. He'll get 12 assists, but he'll also score 22, 23
he's got to
points
score for
most
Indiana.
games.
No.
Yeah, it's a different situation and a longer game too. So, I think that Philly, I couldn't begin to guess. Embiid at any moment could say, "I'm out of here." At any moment, he could also say, "I'm here for the long term. Let's figure some stuff out." I don't see how they don't trade Harden.
Look, let's talk about Embiid briefly. He won MVP last year, as we know. We both would have given it to Jokic because his numbers were better. But in many ways, Jokic kind of just gave him the award, right? Jokic said, "I don't want it." So he withdrew himself from consideration.
Exactly right. You're exactly right.
Listen, Embiid is not blameless in the Sixers flaming out of the playoffs last year. He wasn't great. He wasn't MVP level player in the playoffs. And I know Harden gets a lot of crap for underperforming in the playoffs. A lot of it justly deserved. Harden was pretty good last year in the postseason, right? He had some pretty elite games for Philadelphia. So I'm not going to sit here and say, well, if they had a better James Harden, they would have won. They would have advanced further in the playoffs. If they had a better Embiid, they probably advanced, right? Had Game 6 at home to win. Couldn't close the door then. There's a lot of stuff to go around there. You can say it's some Doc Rivers issues, but he's gone now. So we'll see what happens when Nick Nurse gets in, who, by the way, as you talked about, he's got some reputation management stuff he's got to clean up on his own. So they got that to deal with. They have the James Harden calling Daryl Morey a liar situation to deal with. And let's get into that now. So Harden's in China as part of his Adidas duties. Many of you guys know that when you are a signature athlete and you have a signature shoe for a lot of these companies, China's a big market for sales, and you go there and you run camps and clinics and a whole bunch of stuff. Every great player who's got a signature shoe has done it multiple times. And Harden said, Daryl Morey's a liar, and I will never play for an organization that he's involved with again. Let me repeat myself. Daryl Morey's a liar. And I was like, Jesus. And the fact that he repeated it and said it again at a camp for kids who just want to hoop with their favorite player, I was like, this must be bad news. And what that tells me is
he was in China. He was in China.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
We know how they feel about Daryl Morey.
Correct.
He knew what he was doing.
100% he knew what he was doing. And I thought, because listen, prior to all this, Daryl Morey and James Harden are thick as thieves. I mean, Daryl was going on every broadcast he could find talking about how James Harden's the greatest offensive guard to ever play the game of basketball. We championing for his MVPs. Oh, we know this. I mean, let's be honest. A lot of Daryl's success was based on the success of James Harden, right? That's how he was able to win all those games and do all these things. And so we all thought when he found his way to Philly after forcing his way out of Brooklyn, that when he took that deal and took less money, we were like, well, there's got to be some wink, wink. Don't worry, buddy. I'll take care of you on the comeback. Well, it's the comeback, and clearly Morey is not taking care of him the way he thought. So Harden had to opt into his deal to get the guaranteed money that's on the table, because the free agent market is what it is. No one's got any money left to pay you the money you want right now. If you want to go to the Clippers, you'd have to take a much lower deal. So he's going to take whatever's left on his contract right now, and this is just a messy situation, which, as Daryl said before, and we know, he doesn't mind the uncomfortability and things being awkward. That's cool with him. But this has always been my critique of Daryl, David. He's super brilliant, understands the numbers, and all well and good. This is still a people business. And there has to be a way you can use all your smarts and intelligence, but relate to people in a way that makes them comfortable. And for whatever reason, that has gone by the wayside with him and James.
Yeah, it could very well be just a pragmatic decision of he just isn't worth the money that I thought he might be worth when he first, did the deal. If indeed it's true that he passed up an extension with Brooklyn on this word, it's reprehensible.
Mm-hmm.
It's generational money that he already has.
The Brooklyn Max was on the table. All you do was sign it. It was sitting there.
Yeah. If he had agents, which he didn't, then he does now. Great agents. If he did have agents, I would think they would have implored him, never trust, never. Yeah. That's why you have agents, why you have attorneys. Mm-hmm. But Daryl might have just realized, you know what, I'll take the hit, and James will hate me forever, but I'm not going to put us in jail, financial jail. Yeah. And he's the best, in my opinion, talent evaluator, whether it's his algorithms or whatever. Paul Reed, Paul Reed's such a talented player.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, he's the one who got Terquavion Smith,
Mm-hmm.
undrafted player from NC State, who I love. He looked fantastic in those pickup games, really great. He just knows what he's doing with that. And this is, in my opinion, Daryl saw it as collateral damage. That I'm making the decision for the Sixers, and I'm going to lose James Harden forever, and I'm going to take a reputational hit. But and I'm not agreeing or disagreeing. I'm just observing.
Right.
That's my observing. That's my analysis. That he's like, I'll just take the hit, and but it's the best thing for the Sixers. That's my guess.
No, I think you're definitely right. That is Daryl's approach, right? Daryl is the king of pragmatism, and he often, as he does, he tries to take emotion out of it as much as possible, particularly when doing these kinds of deals, or non-deals in this case. I will say this, David.
Right.
James Harden was very good last year.
Amazing.
96th percentile in estimated plus minus, 97th percentile in earned wins. Based on our formula that we like to use for bonus wins, if you pay him based on what he did last year, 11.6 in wins last year, using 3.75, which is what a win cost, that's a $43 million player. Now, maybe Daryl thinks they're probably going to drop to like 7 next year. I don't know what. Even if he drops, let's say he drops to 9 wins, in estimated wins next year.
Okay.
David, that's still a $33.7 million player. That's not a cheap player. It's still money. So, and I don't think he's going to drop that poorly next year. But I don't know.
Did you watch that video?
I mean, he didn't.
Of him calling him a liar?
It didn't look svelte. Let's
You noticed too.
He's not looking how Luka Doncic is looking slim down for FIBA World Cup. He's not looking like that.
We know he knows how to get in shape.
Yes.
We know, but that he's not there now.
No. I know he is not there now. No. Well, it's going to be awkward as hell in Philly. And all that with a new coach on top of it, which is, I said, when we talked about teams I'm worried about. See? Philly. I said it. I was like, I just don't like the juju around there. And look, it may not matter. They may come out the gate barnstorming. What the hell do I know? But I don't know, man. It just seems like a weird situation.
It's a team to keep an eye on for sure.
All right. We are going to be back after a quick break. All right, David. FIBA World Cup. We'll talk about Team USA in a minute. They were in Spain. They played Spain, who was the number 1 ranked team in the world. Team USA is number 2. And
for weird reasons.
Well, because it's a rolling count that they keep, right? So the Team USA did not win the America's Championship last year. To be fair, it was like our Q team. We didn't no big time NBA dudes were on it, whatever. Meanwhile, Spain won Eurobasket, so it's just the way it rolls. Whatever, they're 1 and we're 2, but Team USA did win the gold the last Olympics, beating Spain in the quarterfinal. So whatever, take with that as you will. But that's where we are right now. Anyway, the Team USA had a 10-point lead at half. Spain came storming back in the third quarter, playing some good ball. But I texted you because I was like, forget Team USA. I said, David, Santi Aldama, I'm so excited.
I don't know why. Tell me why. Tell me why, Jarod.
He looked assertive and looked like he can do things with the ball, decision making, things I don't see him do in Memphis. For obvious, because he doesn't play the same way, right? He doesn't get the opportunities because of where he is on the depth chart. But if he can do a semblance of these things for Memphis next year, that's a good thing, right? That's why I'm excited.
Yeah. So Jarod, I'm not gonna argue with you. First of all, Team USA, it's a nice win in Spain.
Yeah, for sure.
Crazy atmosphere. We have a young team, very young. And we struggle with ball handlers. We have 2. Really, just Brunson,
Halliburton,
and
Tyrese and Brunson. Yeah,
it's really it. And we have turnover problems. I don't love this team. I like their youth for the Olympics for next year to get them a bunch of experience. Mm-hmm. But I was having a lunch at a great little, LA's got all the spots.
Yep.
Great little Korean barbecue spot. We sat kind of indoor, outdoor. Yeah, and nothing fancy. Right by UCLA with 2 agents, an NBA player, and then a high-level college player. And I said to them, all right, we're talking about Team USA. They had just played their first game a couple of nights earlier. I said, let's go around the room. Let's all pick one. I think we had 9 people at our table in total. No, we had 5, but let's pick 2 guys each. What does Team USA look like if we could pick anyone that's currently playing in the NBA? So let's not do 9, but let's real quickly. Who would be there right now if we could bring anyone over?
Okay, can we say the old guys? Like it's
no, we can't. We they're included.
Okay.
So well, if you don't say Kevin Durant, I'm going to tell him you didn't say.
Of course, I was just saying he doesn't need to play basketball because he's too old. Not too old, but he plays too much.
Agreed.
But KD, Steph for sure.
Right.
Easy.
Probably LeBron still.
Yeah, sure. LeBron. Yeah.
Probably AD.
Yep.
He's unbelievable.
Oh my God. Let's see. Who else am I missing? Jimmy Butler, maybe?
I'm just going to say Jimmy Butler. I was just waiting for you to say it. Is Kawhi, of course, someone on my group.
Assuming healthy. Kawhi.
Right. Someone asked me, is Kawhi Leonard healthy? That's what they're asking me. Yeah. Is Kawhi and Paul healthy? Like, there's a whole James Harden. There's a whole Dame Lillard who you can protect with zone. Right. There's a whole bunch of dudes. Right. And so for this young group of guys, where Tyrese was all NBA level, Brunson was very good, but we have nothing close to being the most talented team. I thought Steve did a great job. We had a garbage third quarter. We turned the ball over a ton and just looked out of it and recovered nicely on the road in an exhibition game. These guys are competitors. That's the one thing we always have to remember is they compete. That's how you get there. That's how you make it.
Yep, for sure.
And so when they got punched in the face, they responded, I thought, very well. Very well. Yeah.
And they, look, this is, as you said, this is great experience for all these guys because they're young. So for 2024, and let's be real, because all the people we just mentioned, with the exception of LeBron and maybe Steph, are going to be on the short list for Olympics for 2024.
Next year. Yeah.
And not because Steph is not good enough, it's because he probably won't want to play to rest himself for the season. But we know Durant is obsessed and will play. So a bunch of them ain't going to make it anyway, just because there's not going to be enough spots. That's just how the math works. But this is excellent experience for them. And like we talked about with Eurobasket last year and all the other international competition, it's a great springboard for you into your NBA season. We saw what Lauri Markkanen did. So all these guys, Wagner down in Orlando, they really used it to kind of transform themselves into having really good NBA seasons. So it'll serve 2 purposes. I still like our depth. Like I talked about before, like we may not have the best player. Well, we don't. It's Nikola Jokic, right? The best player in the world won't be American maybe for a lot of years. But players 5 through 12 and 14, yeah, we're going to be way better. And Kerr actually said that after the game. He's like, top end guys, there might be guys better than us, whatever. But when you go to the bottom, we just have more players who are better. So if those guys develop and play that way, that depth is what'll save us, as opposed to what we were in 92. Oh my God, Jordan, everybody. No, it won't be that. But we're so much better 5 through 12 that we'll be okay.
We're a huge country.
We are.
Yeah, we have a lot of
300 something million, give or take.
Probably 370. Yeah. We invented the game here. We appreciate athletes here. We have systems in place to get them playing. Kurt talked about depth. I thought was good. He also has moved Paolo to play some 5. And so between Triple J, who can handle the ball some and rebound and push, and Paolo, defense and transition is where I've always felt like we win games.
For sure.
Because if you don't do that, anyone can beat us if we just miss shots. Well, we shot it great last night and still didn't win by a lot, but we won, comfortably. We just
this team will, by the way, they're going to miss a lot of shots. This team will miss a ton of shots.
Probably,
that's just how they will. But I like your point. With Jaren at center and with the defense and the rim protection. And, Jaren's stat line wasn't like overwhelming last night, but you can see he was such a presence in the interior last night. And that's big for international ball. Like if he's doing that, that's huge.
But this is not on our script today, but you bring up an interesting thing to consider. When is there going to be an American to be the best player in the world? And who's that going to be?
What's a good question?
I have a couple of thoughts.
Let me just pull up dunks and threes right now and see who's where and what age they are. Okay.
I would make. I mean, it's not fair to say Durant or LeBron.
Yeah, no old dudes. I'm taking all old dudes, and I love Durant. You know that, but old dudes out.
Of course.
For now.
I think Tatum still has a chance to be a league MVP.
Think Tatum's the next. Yeah, he's the next.
But I've got another interesting name for you.
Ooh, what do you got?
He's got a couple years to go. I'm not going to quit on John Morant.
Yeah. I like that.
He's so incredibly relentless,
He is.
so athletic. He's got to grow up, as we've talked a lot about here. I think he's got to get a shot better, but he can have an Iverson, Derrick Rose kind of season and of course you could be MVP and not be the world's best player.
For sure.
But and there are two different things there. He could be an NBA MVP, and there is, if he can really get that shot down and take it a step up defensively, he's got huge upside to be the best player in the world. I don't think it's likely. Those guys are really good.
He, had it not been for what transpired this year, he would be on Team USA right now with this team. But he's not, and I firmly believe, I haven't talked to anybody, but I firmly believe that what went on with him is the reason why he's not with Team USA right now.
Makes sense. It makes a lot of sense.
I was just thinking about you said best player in the world. Do you think, because he's young, not American, he's Canadian, but whatever, SGA, does he have best player in the world potential?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. He's got to shoot better.
Yeah.
Just like Ja. Yeah. The advantage these other guys have, Giannis and Jokic.
Right, and Jokic.
And
they're humongous.
Right. It's just Embiid. They're just so tall. Yeah. And so they have more of an impact defensively. And that's why I say Tatum first. Is at 6'8", he can be an all-league defender and score 30 a game if you wanted to.
Yeah. No, I like where you're going there. That's interesting. We were thinking about that. Who next great American player? Well, we may have
next. Yeah, not great, but best.
Best. It might be Cameron Boozer. Who knows?
Obviously, Victor's French.
But yeah, well, Victor. Excited for him when he's back. All right, a story happened while you were away. I know it piqued your interest because you dropped it into our text chat. ESPN is entered into an agreement with Penn Entertainment, and it's going to be for somewhere between $1.5 and $2 billion around. Some other clauses have to hit. I think the 1.5 for sure is definite. Some other things have to trigger for that additional $500 million over the next decade, which really amounts to $150 million a year. And the ESPN Bet app will go live. And that's the ESPN now is going to be they're already a player in terms of like talking about it on every show and leading it to the bottom of the ticker, but now it's going to be an actual dedicated app with all this information, and the ability for fans to just hop right on ESPN and, I want to bet on the game or bet on this player doing whatever right here. The challenge, of course, with that is that, at least nominally, maybe not in practice, ESPN is a news organization, right? Like that's what they're a media entity. That's what they supposedly are. And they have information and break news, quote unquote, right? When someone's going to get traded, an injury, whatever it may be. And what and how are the lines going to be blurred and or separated between that piece of the business and the actual gambling piece? Now, this is a money play that ESPN had to do, right? Because ESPN spends a lot of money on live sports rights, just between the NBA, NFL, and let's say SEC football alone. I mean, billions of dollars. Yeah. And in order to recoup that, as we heard, we had Ben Aronson on for our Future of the NBA podcast, you get recoupment in advertising during the course of those live events. Well, I don't think, and I know they're not, right? The ad dollars ain't quite equaling what we're outlaying on the actual properties, not to mention all the top-end talent ESPN has to pay, which is why they laid off a bunch of people and the whole kit and caboodle. And we also heard that ESPN is looking for investors in various different ways. The problem is this company needs money, right? That's why they're doing this.
Right before an earnings call, I should add.
And of course, because the idea there is, anybody who knows, Disney is the parent company of ESPN. This is a publicly traded company. Bob Iger is CEO. The CEO's graded on one thing. That's stock price. That's it. Like all the other shit, like whatever. Like, yeah, okay, some scandals, sure. If the freaking stock price is doing what it's doing and you're outperforming earnings, guess what? You keep your job. If it's not and you underperform several quarters in a row, you're getting fired. But don't cry for Bob Iger. He's fine. But that's the reality. So anytime news like that happens, it's going to cause a jump in the markets to move, right? And so the stock price did go up a bit, I believe, that day and right before the earnings call that afternoon. So that made some people happy. But it's kind of a Band-Aid on a serious wound. We'll see what actually ends up happening going forward. I know one of the things that, and Ben talked about it on a podcast with Tom Haberstroh and Ben Fox.
I was going to credit both Ben Aronson and Ben Fox. And Ben Aronson's one who talked with the earnings call because I listened to Tom's episode yesterday. Yeah.
And they, look, it again, short term. In the long term, is this going to help ESPN? I don't know. Jury remains out because Penn Entertainment. It's just cash right now. And look, to us, $150 million will change our lives. That's us. To a corporation,
right.
you're not going to really do a whole lot, right?
Right. It's a nice piece. It's not the deal. It's the deal maker that everyone thinks it is. Yeah.
Correct. And from a mobile app standpoint, a betting app, Penn Entertainment's app, which used to be what Barstool used, is not. It's far behind the functionality and the usability of FanDuel and DraftKings. So they've got an uphill battle to fight. On top of that, to try to catch those guys, they're banking on but ESPN's a global brand name, which of course, yes, we know that it is. But if the functionality is crap on the platform, I promise you, people are going to be like, I don't care that it's ESPN. I'm not using this. That's just common sense. So we'll see how it all goes. I think something you want to talk about, David, was what does this do to the new news breaking, in quotes, I'm air quoting for those of you that can't see me, side of this, right? And this is the first year that Adrian Wojnarowski did not leak all the draft picks ahead of the NBA draft on ESPN. So is this now a thing where Woj will no longer be dropping these little tidbits because he says, oh, I'm hearing from sources that such and such, that moves a line like literally that minute. Now, I know that they have people and sharps all over the place that monitor this stuff, but how does ESPN sort of handle that whole deal? That'll be interesting.
Well, just remember, he people like him tend to get their news from executives who give them that leak so that you'll say nice things about them and write nice things about them. That's just the nature of the business. If you're not sure of what I mean, just read the news that people like Woj break, and you're going to see some flowery compliments about, oh, they hired such and such assistant GM, consider one of the top young GMs. Bullshit. That's
look at the Portland situation, right? The Portland situation is a perfect example.
What happened in the Portland situation?
Well, just like how he talks about the former GM in Portland and all that stuff.
Oh,
so
right. Correct.
That's an easy.
That's
easy
exactly right. So now a team tells us, hey, so and so tells him, hey, so and so, we thought it was just a slight knee sprain, but no, he's out for the year. Does Woj now have to go to his betting partners at ESPN and let them know so they can adjust the line and then break the news? That's something I don't know the answer to any of it, but I had a different question, which was, you really can't gamble on games shot for shot. The technology just isn't fast enough.
No.
We because there's got to be tape delays, miniature delays in TV, but you can do it in person. And so might there be an option? They know if you're inside the arena, if you have a cell phone, and so inside the parameters of the arena, you can bet on games live, play to play, right? If you can get the confirmation back for the play-ins, your bet's in, right? And that's an incentive to come to the games. No doubt. Instead of always want to watch on TV, which means you can affect ticket pricing. If more people want to come to the games on a Tuesday in January, for some average team, you can charge more money for these gamblers who want to gamble shot to shot. I thought that was interesting to consider. That we'll have to see how it plays out.
Yeah, well, we had Scott Kaplan on last week talking about the economics of the league, and micro betting is one of the things that he talked about, right? This idea of, and he brought up something interesting of the psychology of, there's data that shows when there is an amount of money that's wagered on a game, whether it's an outcome or whatever, or a player scoring an amount of points or hitting a number of threes, that is one that creates joy for you but does not stress you out if you lose. There is a huge advantage to that, like these $2 to $5 bets where you're like, the money that you win is immaterial, but it gets you excited because you're rooting for whatever this outcome is to happen, so you can get your $10 payout or whatever the amount happens. So I think, all of that's going to be very interesting. Look, the gambling door has been kicked wide the hell open, and we are where we are.
Yeah. There's no door. It's just an open space.
It's just an open space. We'll see how it all plays out and what continues to happen from here on out. I think, look, the NBA has questions, people wonder about things. We're not too far removed from the Tim Donaghy scandal, right? That wasn't that long ago. And listen, and this year, remember, we talked about on this show, David, with the Toronto Raptors, Fred VanVleet literally called out an official by name and said, he is cheating me from the game. And Scotty got kicked out of a game the day before for doing the same thing. So, there's enough feeling from players about officials that, this is a slippery slope. But listen, the money is what it is, and they're not going to say no to the dollars. So all of it will be interesting to pay attention to going forward.
For sure.
We will wrap here with the 2023 Hall of Fame class that was inducted over the weekend. Now, there were a number of people inducted, so I'm not sliding anyone who I don't mention, but for the purposes of this pod, we're mentioning the people that everyone knows by name.
The stars, yeah.
Pau Gasol, Becky Hammond, Dirk Nowitzki, Tony Parker, Greg Popovich, and, of course, Dwayne Wade. And I thought Wade really, his speech was touching. Allen Iverson presented him for induction, and he said, this guy is like, I wore 3 throughout my college and pro career for the love and respect I have for this man. And he said in his speech, our heroes aren't perfect. And he talked about how you were the definition of someone who came from nothing. You wore all of your failures publicly and you overcame, and that inspired. And I know for you, as someone who you love this stuff, that stuff had to warm your heart, because David, first of all, making the NBA is already an improbable thing. Just off the
struck
jump.
by lightning. Yeah,
right. Like that is already improbable.
Yeah.
On top of that, then when you make the NBA, to then make the Basketball Hall of Fame, I did a little research. Less than 4% of players who play in the NBA will make the Hall of Fame. So it's again another improbable thing. You're probably not going to make it, but to do all that, right, and to again overcome where Wade came from, all the various things, and in that moment to pay homage to AI and you talked about his dad and just everything. I mean, it is the culmination of a lot of work, sacrifice, and not just from the player, from everybody involved, right? All the way back to little, when you're playing 8 and under to get to games and all that. And that's a very wonderful, touching moment.
Yeah, you warmed my heart. They didn't, because I've not watched it yet. I saw some video. But after being gone for a week, I didn't want to watch basketball, and I had to watch Team USA, so that was enough. And then last night we celebrated my son and my nephew's graduation, which we haven't done that yet. But I will watch it. Wade, I think, brought his dad up, didn't he?
Mm-hmm. He sure did.
And didn't Iverson wear a suit with the number 3 Wade on the back? Mm-hmm. That's so cool right there. Mm-hmm. The Iverson thing I really find interesting because, let's face it, Allen Iverson would have been, if he was the exact same player that he was, but he was a white dude from somewhere, everything's different. Mm-hmm. The racism in our country really came out. For Remember, sure. I was coaching in the inner city when he was wearing I think what do you call them? Cornrows, whatever you call them. Mm-hmm. Yeah, when he was wearing that, and what a big deal that was, and the jewelry, whatever, and white America just couldn't swallow it. They couldn't. Meanwhile, those of us working with black athletes every day ate it up with a spoon.
Right, you're like whatever. It's just regular day. It's a Tuesday.
He's just being himself. Like, where is that a bad thing when you're that talented? And you have to remember that I was lucky enough in maybe 92, 93. He was in college. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And that's when I was still coaching inner city kids when he was a college player, and also super famous because of what happened when he was a high school player in the Hampton Roads and all that stuff. Yep. But I watched him play for a week for the World University team. Woo. That I think is the best all-time team after the 92 Dream Team. Like, they demolished everybody. I mean, there's so many, like 8 NBA players on this team of under 20 guys, whatever. But Iverson was breathtaking, Jarod, in his competitiveness and his leadership. Yeah. Tim Duncan was on that team. He never said a word. Ray Allen was on the team. Nothing. Yeah. It was Terry Kittles. Nothing. Yeah. It was Iverson's team. So I loved him from that point on. Like, oh my God, I had no idea. I saw what the media told us to see.
Right.
And I was a Georgetown fan anyway, but I loved him. So to know, I had no idea he loved Dwayne Wade loved him. I'm not surprised. All my players loved him. Yeah, it's a hell of a class. One thing I notice is with MJ being an exception because he's just so different, that the higher up you get and the more successful you get, the more humble you get. You know how lucky you got. to hear Tony Parker say Dirk was the best European of all time and what that meant to Dirk. Dirk talked about this. I read an article about how he just never allowed himself to go there. To MJ's credit, he doesn't either. He could easily say, listen, I'm the best. He never does that. MJ always says you can't compare us. It's not fair.
Right.
And I really respect that. Yeah, I really well, you can compare. We can do whatever we want to do. It's just hard to be accurate. I like that these guys at the top of their profession of all time have a humility about them that's really encouraging to me and inspiring to me. And I also like the connection between, I mean, come on. Wade beat Dirk in 06.
I know.
Dirk beat Wade and LeBron. Like, I like, and Wade versus Tony Parker. Like those, all of that really was nice. And
Pop going in the same year with Tony and Becky Hammond. Like it just,
right. And Becky, and that's my one regret. If I don't know if you've ever seen a movie, and I forgot the name of the movie now, but there's a lovely movie about a family of boys, starting, with dads who can time travel. The women can't, the men can. And when the son is of age and finds out this can happen, how you do it, he says to his dad, like, what do you do? And the dad says, mostly read. He just buys himself more time to read. If I could have done that, I just don't follow women's basketball at all. I don't follow the NFL. I don't follow baseball. I just have no time. NBA, and I don't follow college basketball, really.
Right.
I hearing Pop describe Becky Hammond, she must have been an amazing player.
Oh, yeah. I've definitely seen Becky Hammond games.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I watched through the 30 for 30 about women's basketball winning a gold medal when they had not won. It was fantastic. I never knew any of these girls. I know their names. Couldn't recognize them. Didn't know how they played. It was fantastic. I loved watching every second of it. But, yeah, I loved hearing Becky there with Pop. And, of course, Pop with Tony Parker and Wayne Wade, having coached them in Team USA, too. Yeah, this was a good year for the NBA for that, for sure.
And shout out to Powell, of course, who
obviously,
just an incredible career. So much of Powell, like, first of all, a brilliant guy, right? Studying to be a doctor before he was gonna
is he still doing that?
I mean, I don't even know if he's done with that or what, but I mean, just he's a brilliant dude.
Very, very.
And how much of his career credit he gives to Kobe when he got to the Lakers, and just it is, they say it all the time, and it's easy for fans to dismiss it, but it really is. This NBA is a brotherhood in so many ways because it's a small fraternity. Ain't that many people walking the earth played in this league. And even less are in the whole, right? It's a special thing. So it's nice when those guys can all get together, and ladies too, and just sort of reminisce and speak on their experiences. All right. So Tony said Dirk's the best European. And I think when you look at his total career, that's probably true, right? All the accomplishments. Is Jokic already now a better player than Dirk was? Not in the accomplishments yet, but I think so.
Yeah. Jokic is the best European of all time. And Giannis is African. I'm sorry.
Right. So he doesn't count. I was like, because people would say, what about Giannis? I'm like, no, he's African. Right. So
he's the second best Nigerian of all time right now. Anyway.
Right now.
When you say the Dream's number one?
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
Could change.
Yeah. So of course. Jokic is the best European ever.
Yeah, I would say that for
sure. There was never a time where we knew Dirk was the best player in the world. He was MVP once, but he wasn't the best player in the world. Jokic to me, he's been the best player 3 straight years.
Yeah, no, he's phenomenal. And it'll be interesting to see, right, how that this is actually something that I talked about as we wrap here, David. And I wanted your take on it. When we wrapped up our Future of the NBA conversation with Abigail last Thursday, we talked about this thing we do where, we come into the year. So we're going to say Denver is the defending NBA champions. And I made this whole thing about, but that was last year. I'm not saying Denver doesn't want to win this year, but winning last year has no effect on what's going to happen this year. Different team, people are in different places. Like, I don't know. Maybe they do. Maybe bad shit happens to them. Maybe, who knows? But it's these things are interdependent, right? So every year it's a brand new climb to the top, regardless of the fact that you won the year before.
Well, human nature is you let down. You don't stay as focused. It's hard to do so. There's a reason why Jamal Murray is not playing for Team Canada. He recognized it's spirit sapping trying to win a championship. It's also incredible and uplifting at the same time. And so playing for Team Canada probably would suck some of that energy away that he needs for the run this year. That's why people have called Pat Riley over the years how do you repeat? People call Billy Donovan, how do you repeat? You know, whoever wins the college championship, you're they probably text Billy, what'd you do to win 2 in a row at Florida? Mike Krzyzewski, same thing in the 90s with Duke. It's hard to do. So, but that makes it great. The Warriors, they only repeated once.
Correct.
They only repeated once, and they won 4.
Yeah,
they
only repeated once.
So it's freaking hard. Yeah,
and the great Spurs, the great Spurs teams never
repeated. Right? Yeah, they won 5.
Yeah,
and never won 2 in a row. Right?
It's very difficult to do, and you need luck too on top of that. So, all right, folks, we will see you later on in the week. Take care.